Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing more League of Legends. I'm the Strategy Professor. We're going to be looking at a 7.1 patch analysis, and I'm also going to release my new tier list for 7.1 as well. So keep in mind that the patch just released today, so I haven't played any games on 7.1 yet. I did read the patch notes. I have been thinking about the things they were going to release in the patch notes according to the public beta test server over the last few weeks. So I have some ideas, but once again, some of this could change as the meta evolves over the last couple of weeks. But I want to make sure that I get the content out there as fast as I can because I know people want to know, what they should be doing in the current patch. So we're going to start off with the analysis, and then I'll go down to the support tier list. And I have a great treat for you this time with the support tier list because I included with each individual support for the first two tiers a complete Google Doc that talks about the matchups, the recommended items, the runes, and the final mastery that you should get for each champion. So that should make it very, very simple to figure out when and where to pick these champions and why I think they're strong. And we'll go into that in more depth as we go down the line. But it took a long time to develop all this information and create all these documents, but I tried to make it just as awesome as I possibly could for you. But let's first start with the patch notes analysis because this is going to inform the tier list that we'll talk about later. So I'll just real quick scroll down here. I've got it all listed right here on the Google Doc, sort of what the big things are, but I'll show them visually as well in the video, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So let's just work our way down them. Anivia, I don't think it's going to matter. I still think she's very far out of the meta. She just takes way too long to charge up. I mean, very few people, unless they're stunned, are going to sit there in her Glacial Storm for the full 1.5 seconds. So I think she's just bad right now. I don't think people will use her. Like her identity before was a burst mage that was really slow and had a bit of utility with her wall, and it was guaranteed damage. So that was her big thing: is you would throw your little ice thing at somebody and then put the R underneath them. Boom, guaranteed damage. That's why people liked her. But since they took that away a couple of patches ago, then she's just still kind of in the trash can for now. Now Camille is another one. I'm not sure just how much this is going to affect her. I know she has been strong in some games. I haven't seen her taking over too much in a lot of my games at my elo, but I know at higher elos, she does quite well in a variety of matchups. So we'll see. It's quite a few hits to her. It's a hit to her growth stat, which the health matters. Like, people don't think, they forget about base stats. Oh, it's only 10 health, but that adds up. I mean, over 18 levels, that's 180 health. So that's about a 10% hit to her overall health as the game progresses. So that can be pretty substantial. Adaptive defenses, knocking the shield down to 1.5 seconds from 2.5 seconds late game. Once again, it looks like they're trying to hit her late game the hardest, which I agree with. When she does take over games, it's because she has Trinity Force and, a couple of defensive items, like a lot of Trinity Force abusers. But they're lowering the adaptive defenses, so that should help later in the game. It won't matter early. Hook shot, I don't think that's going to matter too much. This ultimatum, I haven't played Camille or against Camille a lot, like I've said. This sounds like it would be a pretty good nerf to her team fighting ability, so whenever it knocks away allies when she tries to assassinate someone, they're going to get to respond faster. So this will clarify that she's more of a duelist rather than a, dive the carry and kill them before teammates can do anything about it. So I think overall that sounds like a pretty good change. So it's some nerfs to her, but I think she's still going to be viable, especially at top ends of play. We'll see. Draven, I think this is a huge, huge buff for Draven. I think this is going to be really big. It gives him a lot more damage early on, which is where you want to be powerful as Draven. You want to get those kills early. And it also helps him last hit, which is one of the reasons why I like having a Draven on my team, is because often Draven will be able to last hit. And this is going to help him even more. So you get that bonus AD right off the bat, 30, level 1. That's going to give him, I don't know, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100 AD at level 1. And it's going to be really hard to miss last hits if you have 100 extra AD. So in my elo, I'm currently low platinum. I was diamond last season, but even in low diamond, people just miss so much CS. So this is going to be a massive, massive buff, I think, for solo queue Draven. And this Blood Rush is really awesome too, because then at the end of the game, if it's a really good Draven, then you can keep casting this and you won't run out of mana, and it'll constantly give you that bonus attack speed, which is really, really good. And it'll help you escape, because one of the big things with Draven is that he's very dangerous. He can't escape, but this will give him a lot of move speed, so he's constantly able to run around the fight and reposition, which is really, really good for high-class Dravens. So I don't know if we'll see him at like pro play, but I think he'll be very strong in solo queue. And he seems like he would be bad in solo queue, right, if you think about it conceptually, because you have to be able to catch axes and last hit and watch your mini-map and trade well with the enemy. Like, it's a lot of stuff for people to handle. But the bottom line is it lets people last hit really well with these spinning axes, even if you drop them every now and then. And that, I think, is one of the most important things in solo queue, is landing those last hits. And a lot of people just aren't good at it, frankly. A lot of the ADCs that I see. So I think that just the very fact that it lets you hit last hits better with your Q will make him a very, very good ADC in solo queue, regardless of whether they, drop axes every now and then, or cash in their adoration, which is nice. Just the fact they actually get CS is good. So that's good enough for me. Maybe I have really low expectations, but if the AD carries hit last hit in CS, I'm happy. Okay, so anyways, I think it's going to be good at a lot of elos with Draven, even though he is very dangerous, even though a lot of people won't be able to use his Q, his spinning axis correctly, and they still won't reposition correctly with Blood Rush. I still think it's overall a very large buff for Draven. Gives him a power spike early, increases the probability that he's going to be able to cash in his stacks before he dies. The jungle changes also help with that, but I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Okay, so massive buff to Draven. Where does he stand? I'd put him up there with like Twitch and Vayne in terms of like hyper carry, power, damage champions now. I think he's pretty dang good. I don't know if he's as good as those two are right now, but he certainly has a much better laning phase than either one of those. So we'll see. I think he'll be quite strong. Kalista, I mean, they did change the way that her Ren stacks. This sounds pretty good. Stacks on stacks. And getting a little bit more mana refund so you can rend more often. I think Kalista is still just in a really bad place right now. She needs, I believe she gets like, they did buff Blade of the Ruined King, and she gets like Hurricane Blade and some other stuff, but she's really good at shredding tanks and like moving around tanks is sort of her thing, because she gets that Blade of the Ruined King. And has some different percentage damage abilities. But I think, I still think she's going to be in the gutter. I think she just has a lot of problems right now. Her attack speed is so low. And critical strike is really where it's at. And right now, people are just getting blown up. Like, there's a lot of assassins and really high damage champions, and it's a lot of skirmishing right now in solo queue. So she's just very vulnerable to getting killed. I mean, you can kite with her if you're really good. I just think that she's still going to be a bottom tier AD carry. Like, she's going to get a little better with this, but she's still going to be down in the gutter. I would still take, Twitch, Draven, Caitlyn, Ezreal, Jhin, Vayne, just Sivir, any number of AD carries before I would take Kalista in solo queue right now. Also, she has an extremely high skill cap. You have to be able to orb walk very, very well and be very safe, because she's very squishy. And that's just not a reasonable thing to expect a lot of people to do in solo queue. So I still don't recommend Kalista. Karma, I think this is mostly going to affect pro play. I think she's going to fall out of the pro meta. She might be replaced by something like Nami. It depends. I think Malzahar support's going to get a lot of play in pro play before he gets nerfed. But I think that Karma, I mean, she still is not a great support for solo queue, I think. It just requires too much coordination with your team. They have to really leverage the speed that you give with the Mantra E, and it doesn't last for very long. And now they're just hitting her shield, so it's a pretty big hit, too. I mean, 30 doesn't sound like much, but that's what, like almost 15%? Somewhere between 10 and 15% nerf to her Mantra E bonus shield. So, and then remember, that also affects all of these plus shield and heal items too that she can get. She can, with wind speakers and a couple other items, she can get like 40%, and all of those are based off of this base number. So overall, it's a pretty substantial nerf to her. I don't think the W is going to matter that much. We'll see. That hurts mid lane and top lane Karma a little bit. But overall, I think she's a pretty bad support. She's an okay mid and top laner. I just think there's better options out there. Kennen, absolutely gutted. This is terrible. I don't know why they did this to Kennen. Poor Kennen. He very rarely sees play right now anyways, because he gets bullied out by all of these Trinity Force tanks out there. I'm looking at Camille, Hecarim, things like that. And with the prevalence of Locket and Redemption already being very good at AoE like mitigation, so that his damage doesn't really do nearly as much as it did before the invention of the new Locket and the Redemption, and he's already not very good at skirmishing. He can get caught out. He's really a teamfight champion, which isn't really preferable in this meta. You know, there's just a lot of things already going against Kennen, and now they've completely gutted his ultimate. So someone has to basically stand in his ultimate the entire time to get a bunch of extra damage. So almost none of it's front-loaded anymore. So I think this is the end of Kennen. I think he's going to go on the bench for a while. He was already on the bench. He's going to slide way down the bench. I think. It's really bad. And I wish they wouldn't have done this to him. They didn't need to do it. Because he was a check on these early game champions like Riven, like Camille. You know, he loses to them later, but he can bully them out early in lane. And at level 6, he can actually all-in and kill them. That was his thing, is he could bully out people early. At least he had that, despite these other headwinds against him. But now because he doesn't even scale at all anymore, because of this nerf to his R, then no one's going to play him. So that means that things like Riven, Camille, all of these early game melee champions that Kennen could bully, well, he can't do that anymore, so they're going to get even more powerful, because no one's going to pick Kennen. Alright, Lee Sin. This is a huge nerf to Lee Sin. So it can't reveal invisible targets anymore, so you can't slap and reveal Vayne as a prominent example anymore. So that's bad in a lot of situations where you're trying to fight invisible champions, because that was one of his things, is he was a way that you could get around those invisible champions, because you can't pink ward them anymore. So that's bad. And the real kicker here is Dragon's Rage does a lot less damage. A lot less damage. Like 25% less damage. So that's going to really, really nerf his AD build, which everyone builds him as. AD Assassin Lee Sin. So he was already not that great in solo queue. He's okay, but people already had a really hard time playing him, and he falls off really hard after, 20 to 25 minutes. So this is just bad. He's going to be in a really bad place right now. This might bump him out of competitive play. We'll see. I think the new jungle changes combined with the change to his R might bump him out of competitive play. We'll see. But certainly in solo queue, he already had a hard enough time because people just make bad decisions on him a lot, and now they just don't even do their press R damage anymore, which is the one thing they could rely on, is they can get close to someone and press R and do a lot of damage. Now it doesn't even do a lot of damage, so they have to line up all their skill shots and play a smart Lee Sin game, which is difficult to do in solo queue. So I think he's going to fall quite a lot. Lucian, these are okay buffs, but it's in the wrong place. Like, Lucian's whole identity is early game bully. He's an ability powered AD carry, and that should be his thing. He should be able to bully people out level 6. He should be able to all-in with his ult and get kills. Early game bully, but they took out flat penetration, which is why he's been in the gutter lately. They replaced it with lethality, which is also the wrong direction, because flat penetration doesn't matter later in the game, because tanks are going to have so much, and you're going to be hitting tanks, don't mistake it. Later in the game, you're probably going to be hitting tanks with Lucian, like a Maokai that has 200 or 300 armor. Shredding an extra 20 of that with lethality off of Ghostblade or something is not going to matter. So that's why he's not in a good place right now. And this doesn't help. Like, it gives you a little bit of early game damage. So 40% of total attack damage at level 1 instead of 30. So that is good. That's good, for sure, with his double shots. But this base damage on his Q doesn't really go up that much. It goes up marginally. So it goes up like 10. So it's some okay buffs to his early game, but I think they need a bit more. This is actually pretty good. The 30 to 40 damage early on is actually pretty good. I don't think it's going to be enough. I still think he's going to be in the gutter for a variety of reasons. But I mean, the most of which is there's not a flat armor penetration build that's good anymore, and you kind of have to go like Black Cleaver on him, and he's just such a short range, and it's just so dangerous against all the assassins in the current meta. He's not going to be that good. This is better, for sure. Now he can bully people a little bit more early, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. I mean, maybe if you have like a Zyra or something that can really pressure and do a lot of damage, or like a Malzahar early on, you might be able to go with it. But I still think you're safer going with something like Jhin if you want early game damage and pressure. Although Jhin, I don't think is nearly as good as he used to be either, for the same reasons. There's no penetration build. Okay, Poppy. So, how long are we taking here? We're doing okay on time. I want to try to spend maybe 30 to 45 minutes on the patch analysis, and then 30 to 45 on the tier list. So it'll be a long video, but I want to give a lot of details. Okay, so Poppy, this is going to be a huge nerf to Poppy, I think. So the uptime on her shield is basically cut by 40% here, which is massive. Because the problem with Poppy is she would get, I think she gets Colossus shield plus this shield, plus she has her Stubborn to a Fault that gives her a lot of extra stats. So it was just almost impossible to kill. And the Southern comes out of me sometimes. And she got a lot of free damage just from running either Frozen Fist or Trinity Force. And Keeper's Verdict, she did a ton of snap damage, and they cut it in half. So now she can't just one-shot people, you know, by basically knocking them up, hitting them into a wall, and then hitting them with the Trinity and killing them. So she's losing a lot of her free damage on her ult, and she's losing a lot of her shield power with her passive. So I think she may not be all the way in the gutter, we're going to see, but I think she'll certainly be supplanted by tanks such as Maokai and Nautilus top lane if people want tanks. Or Irelia. So if you want the damage fighter tank kind of person, Irelia is still there. She's still good. So maybe people start going to Irelia instead. I don't know. We'll see. But Poppy was kind of squeezing out a bunch of those champs, and now she's kind of fallen back a little bit. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not a Ryze player. He's an extremely intricate champion. I think he'll still be good in pro play. He's already questionable in solo queue because he requires pretty good game knowledge and like good rotations. I don't know. He'll still be viable. He'll still be viable. I mean, they're nerfing so they're hitting his late game with the shield. So I don't know. The jury's out. I think he'll still be viable. I don't think it's going to affect him that much. It'll knock out a little bit of his late game power, but there's not really a replacement for him. Maybe Cassiopeia for like late game sustained magic damage. So we'll see. I mean, this might buff Cassiopeia in pro play. She's not really that good in solo queue right now. She is good. She just requires a lot of skill, and people don't master her enough to use her in solo queue. So we'll see. Shyvana, I don't think it's going to matter. She probably still clears the jungle super fast, and she still deals an obscene amount of damage to champions in team fights that can't kite her or get away from her. So I think she's going to be particularly powerful still in solo queue. All right, Syndra, gutted. I think this is really bad for Syndra. Unleashed Power gets an extra 20-second cooldown at level 1, so you can't cast it nearly as much. And you can't do the three sphere thing anymore, where you put down spheres, throw them with your W, it resets their timer, and then you get a couple more, and then you all in. So, and they nerfed the ratio on her W to 0.7. So they did give it bonus true damage, but from what I understand, you don't max this first. I think you max your Q first. I'm not 100% about that. But, you know, having only one sphere instead of 3, even if you get plus 20% bonus true damage on that hit, I just don't think it's going to be worth it. And they nerfed the base damage on it. I feel like taking away these 3 spheres is just going to gut her. I feel like she's not going to be good after this, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, the 20% bonus true damage sounds intriguing, but the fact that you lose the 3 spheres to get it really is going to hinder your ult quite a bit, and that extra 20-second cooldown. So I think she's not in the gutter. She'll still be viable, but she's definitely not down off of her pedestal. Talon, not going to matter. Okay. ZZ'Rot Portal. I mean, okay, so Talon, all they did was they gave him a little bit more brightness on his particles, a little bit more mana regen, a little bit more health on kill. I don't think it's going to matter. Maybe it will, but I think it's not, I just don't think it's going to matter. There's just better choices at every position. Okay, ZZ'Rot Portal. This is interesting, and I haven't played this yet, so I don't know. This is the most speculative one. We'll see after tonight. I'll try it out tonight on the stream, 8:30 Eastern. Well, it might be a little bit later because I'm doing this video. But, you know, around somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, I'll try it out on stream. They're clarifying the purpose of ZZ'Rot Portal. So what this is it's not going to be a lane split pushing device as much anymore as it is going to be just a straight brute force take the tower type of thing. So they're lowering the duration and the cooldown, which is great. Because one of the big problems with the Void Gate is it always feels kind of bad just to drop it somewhere to help siege a tower if you think you're going to get the tower anyways. because, you know, you might sit there and try to take the tower for 30 seconds and you get it, and then it's just another, you know, however long wasted, 120 seconds wasted because they're going to come out and kill it. So now you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with the ZZ'Rot placement because it's going to come off cooldown a lot faster. So you can place it in more dangerous spots in the side lanes if you want. You can place it to take towers, and you're going to get it back a lot faster. So it's not as much of a waste of a cooldown if they kill it after 30 seconds to a minute. It's not a huge deal. You'll get it back. Now, this is the intriguing part to me. The structure damage went from 5 per level to 20 per level, so it's 4 times the damage to towers now. So they really clarified it as a tower-taking option. It will, in fact, kill towers very quickly by itself. Now, this is one thing, the most disconcerting thing about this, is that the Void Spawn no longer gained 50 health per level. So I don't know what their base health is now. I could look and see if this clarifies that. Let me just look on League Wiki and see if they've updated this yet. They're usually pretty good about updating, but it just happened today, and I know they're really busy, and these people probably do this for free. Well, I guess they have ads, so maybe they don't. I don't know. Either way, I'm not going to hate on them if they don't have it updated yet, but... Where are basic? Here we go. So let me just see like how much health, like the base health is, because the 50 health per level, losing that feels like, that feels really bad. All right, we'll go Raptor Cloak, ZZ. Okay, so they did change the cooldown. Ignore champions and void targets. 15% of your maximum health is damaged. That also will scale pretty nice. Okay, let's see. Minus 20 health per level. Okay, so they get less attack damage, but when they explode, they do that damage. What's their base health? Minus 20% per level. So they only last, or per second. So they only last for like 5 seconds now. So their travel time got cut in half. So it used to be able to run for like half of the lane, but now it can only run like a quarter of a lane. Let me see here. Okay, this is just historical stuff. It doesn't say what their base health is. It says their growth is lowered, but I don't know what their base is. So I don't know. We'll try it out. So the important thing to think about there is if enemies can kill it in just one auto attack, then it never hits the tower, then that could be bad. It could still be okay in sieging, like when a wave comes up. If they don't have good wave clear, then like 3 or 4 of these things will sneak in, probably, while people are trying to clear the wave. But if people can clear it with AoE effects, so if it runs through like a Zig minefield and dies a lot, or is something like that, that could be bad. If people can just auto attack these things in one go and not have it hit the tower. So we'll see. Now, if you put it really close to a tower and run away, then if the tower doesn't kill it in one shot, then it could do a lot of damage. So a lot of it's just going to depend on how fast people can kill these things as they're moving in. So they do a lot of damage to towers. They last a lot. The cooldown is less, is what I'm trying to say. So all of this is good. But it depends on this health, because it doesn't say what the base health is. So I think it's a buff for taking towers. So I talk about this in my notes here. ZZ'Rot Portal. It's bad for splitting, and it's great for taking towers now. So overall, it should be a big buff for ZZ. I think like some of the problems with the old ZZ is you had to go leave your team to place it. So if you were trying to do Baron, you would have to go down and put it in the bottom lane. And, you know, in that time, your team might get engaged on and die, so that's obviously not really good. Another one was people would go to the ZZ lane. So I'd say, I'm going to put ZZ bottom, you know, let's go prep for Baron, and then the split pusher person would go bottom where the ZZ is. That happens so much where people would just follow the ZZ lane. They'd be like, oh, it's pushed. I'm going to go push with it. It's like, no, you go to the opposite place as ZZ. That way you get extra pressure on the map. So it's just really hard for people, at least in my ELO, to understand what that means. And so now this clarifies its purpose. It's easy to understand. You go siege with it. So I think that's, I think it's a buff. It's either going to be a buff or it's going to be complete garbage. One or the other. There's not going to be a lot of middle ground here. I think it's going to be a situational item where if you need extra siege, if you have like a Vayne as AD carry or Lucian or just something that just can't get close to towers that easily, this could be a nice option. Okay, they made some buffs to the some of the fruit that you can get. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Jungle experience. So this is actually a pretty big deal. So they explain a lot in here about it, but basically what happens is the first clear is going to give you a lot less XP. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this is going to mean in terms of like jungler like item and level breakpoints and all that stuff. But I feel like this is going to really hurt early game junglers. So it's going to make them have a little bit less levels. It's going to slow down their speed, so they may not be able to come level 3 bottom nearly as quickly as they used to. So we'll see. And they are putting a lot of extra experience on these raptors. I mean, plus 20 for a small raptor is a big deal. So that's going to heavily favor the left side of the map. Let me show you. Okay. There we go. So on blue side of the map, it's going to heavily favor that because the Raptors are here, and that's on the bottom side. So the Fiesta bottom is going to continue for all the reasons I described in my meta analysis video. If you want to check those out, it's also on the main page, The Strategy Professor at YouTube. But the Fiesta bottom is how you win games. Whichever team sits on bottom is going to win the game most of the time because towers are very easy to kill. So are dragons, and you're highly incentivized to get these things because dragons are pretty relevant right now, and getting first tower gold is very important as well. And most ADCs are still going to be really bad in the early game, so they're easy targets to pick off. And it's hard for the support to get a lot of vision because of the way they changed how pink wards work. So all this means the Fiesta is going to continue bottom, love it or hate it. It's still going to continue. But because these Raptors are so much better than other camps right now, because they increase the experience by 80, 20 per little Raptor. I think there's 4 of them there. There might even be 5 of them. That'd be 100 experience. So because these are so much more valuable than anything on the blue side of the map, it's really going to make people hang out down here. However, on red side, Raptors are up here. So that's very disproportionate. Because now, whoever's on the red side, they want to be near the Raptors because those things give all the experience, but that's far away from the bot lane. And the bot lane's still the best place to be. So I think this is really going to hurt, especially for competitive play. I think it's going to hurt red side a lot. Blue side already had an advantage for a lot of reasons, a little bit of an advantage in competitive play. That's why whenever a team gets the choice, they almost always pick blue. But now that's going to be compounded quite a lot. And the reason you go blue is because you can control earlier dragons as well. It's easier to ward over this pit and keep vision on it. You can jump over this and steal it in certain circumstances. It's easier to get to Baron later on. Yeah, and you can bait people around. The red area is really easy. It's a lot easier to bait people and kill them around red because there's all these bushes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different bushes you could be hiding in. Whereas, on blue side, if you're the red side trying to bait them into killing, I mean, I guess you can, you can ward over this wall in here, but there's only really 2 places. Like you can jump here or come around the corner and catch people who are going for Baron. But in here, there's just so many different places. It's a lot easier to kill people in the red side, which means you get to Baron faster. That's one of the reasons why blue. So that's why blue side, if you've ever wanted in competitive play, is usually a lot better, and people pick blue is because it's easier. First of all the red stuff, so people can camp bottom lane. It's easier to steal dragon and to gain control of this area early on. Because if you try to steal dragon and you die while you steal a dragon, 1 death for dragon is okay. I don't know. I mean, there's arguments for both sides of it, but I think the big deal is early on, you can be near the bottom side, and late game, you can be in here and get a lot easier bush kills and then convert it directly to a Baron a lot faster than you can on the other side of the map. So anyways, I think it's going to heavily favor blue side, which people, I mean, you can't do anything about that playing solo queue. It's just something to be aware of. So yeah, I think that this incentivizes a lot for people to stay on the red side of the map. And if you can steal that, so if you're playing like Malzahar support or something like that, and you can steal these Crimson Raptors, or if you're a mid laner who can steal Crimson Raptors really easily, that's going to be a huge buff. It's going to let people like Ziggs or these other AoE type of champions that can go in there and just blow up a bunch of these Raptors and get level 6 faster. It's going to give them a huge advantage. So I don't know why they changed the Raptors like that. It seems like a huge mistake balance-wise, but I guess they have their reasons. I don't agree with them. But they are nerfing the overall jungle experience. That's good. So what that's going to mean is junglers are going to be a lot weaker early in the game, and that means they're not going to be able to gank bottom nearly as fast. So this is going to hurt people like Lee Sin and Elise. So Lee got the nerf to his R, and he's a super early game jungler, so this is going to hurt him as well because he can't gank. He won't be nearly as effective ganking, because he'll be down in experience and gold. So this is a buff for bottom lane, because you're not going to be at a huge disadvantage anymore. The jungler's not going to come rolling up level 3 when you're level 2, or level 6 when you're level 5 probably anymore. They're going to be about on your level for the first part of the game. And a really important side portion of this, I think, we'll see, but I think it's going to let the support get a Sightstone before the Dragon Rush. So one thing that I talk about in my metagame analysis video is a lot of junglers, not a lot, but a decent chunk of junglers can do Dragon extremely early, like level 4. Some of these things can solo level 4. Like a Shyvana, I believe, can solo Dragon level 4, and there's a few other popular champions that can do it as well. And it's really hard to get vision of that as bottom lane, because they'll do it before you even can go back and get a Sightstone. They do it so quickly. And, you know, if you are on red side, for example, you have to try to keep vision of the try. You have to try to keep vision of these bushes here. Like red side, you can maybe get vision of Dragon, but usually you have to use your wards either here or in bushes, depending on the matchup. So you're not going to have a ward for Dragon until you get a Sightstone. If you're on blue side, you have to ward here, because they can jump over this little bush with the plant, and probably somewhere in your lane with your wards. Like before those plants, the blast plant right here, where people could jump over this, you used to be able to ward Dragon, and that would also cover this entrance. And so some junglers could still jump over this wall, but some of them couldn't. But now they can all jump over this wall. And so you have to ward here instead of warding the Dragon. So all of this means it was a lot easier to steal Dragon early on, or not steal it, but sneak it earlier on. Also, people can jump over here, like jump over this blast plant to get in there without anyone seeing them on the wards. There's a lot of problems with taking early Dragons solo. So this should help with that. It should let you get a Sightstone before people can solo out the Dragon at level 4. So it's still going to be a Fiesta bottom, but I think people are going to be in a better position because the jungler is going to be lower level with less gold, and it's just going to be slower. So that really helps out, especially dangerous champions like Draven in the early game that want to be bullies, but they have to dial it back a little bit because jungle is... the jungler could come. Okay, we're doing all right on time. Okay, so what does all this mean? What's going to matter here? What's the meta shift? What are going to be the big changes based on what I just talked about right here? All these nerfs, all these buffs, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so number one, the jungle shifts favor mid-game power junglers. So Lee Sin and Hekra, or Lee Sin, Elise, and Eve are all going to fall off a little bit because they're going to be lower level, and they really need to do a lot of damage early on. Eve, because people will start putting wards on your camp, so people will start getting control wards. You really need to try to get some kills with your invisibility early on while you're a higher level and before people get their pinks and start warding your camps. So Eve's going to take a hit. Elise is going to take a hit. She's another early game jungler. She basically doesn't have an ultimate, so she has to really capitalize on her extreme damage in the early game. Same thing with Lee Sin. He does have an ultimate, but he falls off a lot later into the game because it just is really hard to start doing his moves to people. It's very, very dangerous to try to do Lee Sin things later in the game. So those are going to fall off, and it's going to be a buff to Vi and Hecarim, who I think are already the most oppressive junglers, because now Lee Sin, Elise, and Eve can't go bully them out in their jungle. I mean, Hecarim's okay in the early game in the jungle. Vi's okay, but their power spike comes at level 6. They don't care, really, if they don't get a lot of ganks early on. It's okay, they want to gank, but really, they hit their power spike at level 6 once they get their huge ultimate. So it's going to buff anyone that has a huge ultimate that you can leverage. I mean, maybe someone like Fiddlesticks as well, but I still think he's going to have problems. Fiddlesticks could rise, though, because Lee, Elise, and Eve and these early game bully junglers are going to have a hard time bullying him out, but I don't know. So we could see some sleeper picks like Fiddlesticks or things like that come out, but I suspect it's just going to be a lot of Vi and Hecarim because all these early ones got nerfed and the mid-game scaling champions now, the ones that are the most overpowered right now will just get better. Okay. Jungle shifts also empower early game dangerous bot lanes. So a reason that people like Jhin, Draven, stuff like that, one reason among many why they've had a hard time early on is they can get ganked by the jungler very, very early, and the jungler is going to be super powerful. They're going to be double buffed like level 4 or something when you're still level 3. So this should dial that back a little bit. And because the jungler is not going to be there as often and is not going to be as high of a level, this means that you can actually start bullying out Twitch, Ezreal, and Vayne in the early game because the jungler can't help them out as much. So that's one reason that Vayne and Twitch were so strong right now, is because it's just been kind of everyone's very scared bottom trying to farm off. Like smart people are scared bottom because it's just a constant fiesta starting at level 3. The jungler just will sit on your lane, and so it's very dangerous to play the bully champions like Draven, like Lucian. But now the bullies are going to be back in town, and that might help shut down Twitch and Vayne early on. We'll see. Okay, so the fall of Poppy and Kennen top is going to give rise to other tanks like Malachi and Nautilus, and it's also going to make sort of the melee skirmisher type of champions a lot more powerful. So your Riven, your Camille, your Irelia, because Poppy could just beat them up, could just build full tank and 1v1 them with her kit. Now she's out of the equation, and Kennen would fall off later, but he could still bully them out because he's an auto attack champion with some really good trading with his lightning and stuff like that, and he could blow them up at level 6. He could force them to buy a Hex Drinker, which slows down their progression and stuff like that. But since those two are in the gutter now, Riven, Camille, Irelia, all these fighters are going to get even better. They're already super powerful top lane, and now they're going to get even better. So it's a nerf to Trundle, because Trundle was really good against Poppy. Trundle might come back in town if people start playing Malachi and Nautilus a lot, but he just seems to have fallen off of most radars for whatever reason. He's really good against tanks, but he's really bad against things like Riven and Camille. Okay. The fall of Syndra and the Ryze in the mid lane is going to help out squishy burst champions, especially ones that can get bullied out early. So Katarina is going to be the largest beneficiary of this because she's so ridiculously powerful when she gets to level 6. She's already ban worthy basically everywhere, but now one of the premier bullies, two of the premier bullies early game that could punish her really hard and hold her down were Syndra and Ryze, and now that both of them have been nerfed and people aren't going to be picking them as much, Katarina is going to be off the charts powerful. She's going to be a pick ban every game. Ziggs, very similar. Syndra and Ryze could bully him out. Ryze a little bit less so because Ziggs has good range, but Syndra could just blow him up. She could stun him from 1100 range and just blow him up. So Ziggs is going to get more powerful. Champions like LeBlanc are going to get a bit more powerful. Ahri is going to be better. Ryze was very good against Ahri. Fizz is going to be better, although I think that Fizz is still going to have a hard time in lane. This certainly helps him that the premier bully is being taken off the table. So I'm not sure who this is going to nerf. I don't know who was really good against Syndra to begin with, or Ryze. I know Cassiopeia could be good against Ryze. I don't know as far as the nerfs, like who that's going to indirectly nerf. But either way, these are champions that are going to be a lot better now. And maybe Orianna as well. I'd go ahead and put in Orianna. I'm not really sure about those matchups, but I think Orianna is very good against Katarina because when she tries to ult you, you just ult yourself. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know about the nerfs, but these are definitely going to be buffs. To Katarina in particular, Katarina and Ziggs. The other ones will be okay. So overall, who are going to be the best champions then? And that'll finish up the first half of the video here. Who are going to be the best champions for each role? Top, Malachi, Nautilus. Those are the replacements for Poppy if you want premier tanks. Camille, Irelia, Kale, I think is very, very good in solo queue. Doesn't get used a lot. She can't get bullied out by Kennen anymore. Poppy can't just ignore her. So Kale's very good against these like all-in assassin type of champions like Camille, Riven, that type of stuff. She can be quite good. So I don't know. Kayle is kind of a wild card. She could be good. Swain, I don't really understand why Swain is so good, but it seems like almost every time there's a Swain in my game, he seems very good and impactful. I tried looking him up on League Wikia. I'm not sure what they changed about the Masteries. It might be that new GLP build that people were doing. I'm not really sure, but I feel like Swain can be really good as a tank AP damage hybrid. So if you need more AP damage, he's probably the best AP mage top right now. Vladimir might be pretty good too, but if you just need a bit more AP on your team, if like your mid laner is Yasuo and your jungler is Graves or something like that, and your bot lane is, you know, Caitlyn, then Swain can be a good AP option. So just to keep people honest, make them buy some MR, Swain can be a good option. So because all the rest of these are either tank or AD damage. Well, Kale's kind of hybrid, but whatever. I think Swain can be good, although I don't quite fully understand how or why. I feel like he's really good. He has CC, so he's kind of like Vladimir. He's very, he can sustain very well. I guess he's good against mages because he can buy, he benefits from getting a lot of health. He has pretty high base damages, and he benefits from Spirit Visage, is what I'm thinking of quite a lot. So it helps his healing, and it gives him a lot of extra tankiness against popular AP builds. People might start going a bunch of AP. If people start going Ziggs bottom and another AP middle and maybe an AP top or something, then Swain can be quite powerful against something like triple AP because he can synergize so well with Spirit Visage. And he does a lot of damage, and he's just really hard to kill with his healing. So maybe that's it. Maybe he's kind of like the anti-AP meta. If people start playing AP bot like Ziggs and they don't bring enough AD, Swain might be the ticket. So stay tuned for that if the metagame shifts in that direction. Also, he can be played middle. I didn't list him middle, but he can also be very powerful middle if that is the case, because he can rush things like Abyssal and Spirit Visage and still be quite powerful. So he might be really good against Katarina too. He does have CC with his little talons and his bird, so he can slow people and he can catch people out. Maybe he's a lot better than I think. I'll add him over here as well. I think he's a sleeper. If there's, he might get a lot better on this patch. We'll see. With the nerf of Poppy and the rise of things like Ziggs and Katarina, he might be a lot better. Okay, so mid lane, Katarina, no-brainer. Syndra was one thing that kept her in check. So was Ryze. Both of those got gutted. So now Katarina is just going to take off like a rocket ship. She is ridiculously powerful. So is Ziggs for different reasons. Ziggs takes towers very quickly. He blows things up super fast. He has great range. Now people can't bully him out as much in middle lane, except for Katarina. He's going to be great. Malzahar, I think, is fantastic. I think a lot of people really underestimate his power. So I think Malzahar can be very good because a lot of people aren't building, they aren't taking CC on their teams, and he's very good against Katarina because he can interrupt her ult and just all in and blow her up. So I think Malzahar can be very strong. Malzahar is great against Riven and Camille also. So if people are taking a lot of assassins and you need an anti-assassin, Malzahar is a great champion for that, especially against AP assassins because they won't build Quicksilver Sash. Ahri, quite powerful. Ryze, once again, was a good counter to Ahri. Ryze is going to be out of the picture a little bit more, and so I think Ahri's going to rise to power. So she's just really safe. She can jump around. She's hard to catch out. She has pretty good poke, pretty good sustain, good wave clear, pretty good all-in. So Ahri's a classic, like, good solo queue champion because she's very mobile. She's very forgiving of mistakes. If you find yourself dying a lot in middle lane, in other words, if you just have a hard time watching your mini-map, or they just have champions that are going to be really good against you, that can run you down and kill you, then Ahri's great because she can escape from almost anything. Outside of a Nautilus ult, like a Vi ult, or a Malzahar ult, she can get away from things. Annie, very good. Annie's always good, but people just don't pick her enough. Almost every game that I see in Annie, she's very relevant and she's very powerful. So great against Katarina. Cat tries to get in and get cute on you, just blow her up, dead. I mean, being able to one-shot someone with an AoE CC ultimate that's on a low cooldown on a champion that has really high AP ratios doesn't ever really go out of style. So if people start playing assassins like Katarina a bit more, or Fizz, Annie can be very good. Now, she can struggle against high-range champions like Ziggs, though, so I wouldn't recommend picking her into Ziggs. You can flash ult him and kill him, probably, but her ranges are so small that later in the game she can get poked out by champions like Ziggs or Lux. So close range assassins, great counter, not as good against poke champs. And Swain for the reasons I just described. Okay, jungle, Hecarim and Vi are just going to be absurdly powerful now in this new jungler, I think. I have no idea why these champions haven't been nerfed yet. They're absurd, especially Hecarim is ridiculous. So if you play jungle, play these two champions every game, and I'll guarantee you it's just free elo right now. Free low, as the kids say. And Kha'Zix. I think Kha'Zix scales really well later in the game. He kind of struggles early. He doesn't have CC. He doesn't have a lot of gap closers. So early game jungle struggles, I think, are fine. He's cool with that. Also, you know, Lee and Elise can't come bully him out in his own jungle anymore. Although he's pretty good at fighting 1v1 in his own jungle. I don't think... Let's just put it this way. He's not gonna mind the early game changes to the jungle nearly as much as other champions because he scales really, really hard into the late game. So he's cool with a more chill early game. Okay. Bot lane, I think Ziggs ADC or APC or whatever people are calling it. I think that's number 1 right now. He's just extremely good. He takes towers very quickly, does a lot of damage. He scales very well into the late game. I mean, he's bad at taking down tanks, especially ones that get Spirit Visage. And he's bad at doing Baron. But other than that, he's good at almost everything else. So if you're cool with that, if you don't mind not getting as many Barons, or if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of tanks, I think Ziggs ADC can be quite good. Twitch and Vayne still supremely powerful, just because if they don't close the game out by 25 minutes, these champions, it doesn't matter if they went 0-8 in lane, they still come out and murder everybody once they get 3 items. So they're really powerful, and Kate is still a top tier. She's just great at every stage in the game. She can harass early. Those traps have so much utility. They're so annoying to get through at the siege. I think she will be the premier pick for competitive play. Probably Kate and Jen would be my guess. But she's very good for solo queue as well. She's just very safe. She has great siege. She has great scaling. There's just really not a lot that's wrong with her. So she's really good. She doesn't do a lot of burst damage early. I guess that can be a drawback. But she's still quite good. And she doesn't scale as hard as Vayne or Twitch. So that's kind of a potential drawback as well. Okay, support. I'm just about to talk about this in more depth, but just real quickly, Malzahar, Janna, Nautilus. I think those are the best supports right now. And I'm going to go into it currently when I talk about the support tier list. So let's go ahead and get into that. How are we looking on time? Good. Okay, I wanted this to be about 45 minutes for the first part, and we'll see if we can do the next part in about 30 minutes maybe. Okay, so the support tier list. If you want a more in-depth discussion about different matchups and compositions, be sure to check out this guide. I talk about some of this stuff in a little bit more depth here. I'm not going to have as much time right now to talk about all of it. But be sure to check out this other guide. It also has timestamps, so if you want to hear more about a bunch of these different supports, check it out, and I have a pick guide. I talk about why compositions are important, like what makes a good composition for solo queue, 6 qualities of a good champion for solo queue, what is scaling, and a bunch of other good stuff. So be sure to check that out if you want more details about matchups. Okay, but let's talk about the best supports right now. Okay, so Janna's still near the top. I'll go ahead and click on these documents, and you can too. If you look in the description, you can find this Google Doc, and you can follow along. If you just want kind of the notes or the cheat sheet here, I'll just go over it really quickly. So Janna's really strong still. She scales very well with Redemption, Locket, which are super powerful items right now. Those are probably the 2 best support items. She scales very well with Hyper Carry, AD carries. So if you have a Vayne or a Twitch or something like that, she's really good. She's good at stopping assassins like Kha'Zix, Riven, just anything that wants to get to your AD carry. She's great at that. She rotates really quickly. She helps your team rotate really quickly because she gives that move speed. There's just very, very little that she's not good at. She's not good at engaging. So if you need to get on their carries and no one on your team has engaged, then it's going to be a bad choice. But other than that, she's still phenomenal. So she's very good with Vayne, Twitch, Kate, Jinx, Draven. So things that have a lot of damage that scale very well into the late game. That's who you want to pick her with. So she's great against things like Leona, Lucian, Riven, and Kha'Zix, things that want to dive and get on your squishy targets. She's the queen of peel, so very good at that. One thing that's underestimated about Janna too is she's really, really fast, which I talk about a lot with her W. So she has really high base speed, and her W gives her an extra like 15% move speed. So she can just zip around the map really quickly, and her tornado lets her get away from things as well. So that means you can go try to save people that would otherwise be impossible to save. So let me show you this. All right, so let's say you're bot lane. and your jungle tries to invade their blue, you know, around 7 minutes or so, and they get caught out. So the other jungler comes in, these people start rotating up. You can run up here with Janna and maybe save them if you're level 6, even if you're not level 6. So you give them the move speed to run towards you. First of all, you give them 3% move speed, which is helpful, and you can tornado to hit multiple targets and knock them up. You can cast your W to slow them down, and you can use your ultimate to knock them away, and you can get away from this really safely because it's all ranged, and it's safe. So you can go try to save people from things like that. Whereas if you're Nautilus and you try to go up here, you're not saving anybody. Because if you try to hook in and start peeling people, then they're just going to kill you. Or if you're Leona, they're going to kill you. Or if you're Thresh, well, with Thresh, you can throw the lantern and save them. But Janna is a champion who can try to make risky saves and not get punished for it. So she can try to save people that are out of position with shields and heals and tornadoes and all that stuff. And she can get away and not die. So you don't have to sit there and let people die like you would if you were playing something like Nautilus. Tahm Kench can also help people escape. But you see what I'm saying? Like, she can make those kinds of plays that other supports can't necessarily make. Okay, so she's good against those champions. She's pretty bad with things like Ezreal, Lucian, and Tristana. So it's not that she's not good with them, it's just that they don't scale very well. So if your teammate is playing something like Lucian and they have a Kate or a Twitch, you don't want to pick Janna because you're going to lose the late game. Because Twitch, Tristana, Ezreal, like just bad or underpowered ADCs. Ezreal is good, but he takes a while to get online. You don't want to pick her into that. There are better options for that. Now, Ezreal is okay, but the problem is Ezreal's already super safe, so going Janna just means that you're too safe. Like, you could pick a roaming champion like Malzahar and Nautilus and try to go make plays middle. So you're losing a lot of opportunity cost if you pick Janna with Ezreal, because you really want Janna with fairly unsafe things, or things that scale really high into the game. So Jinx, Draven, Twitch, and Vayne are the unsafe ones, and Caitlyn scales so well anyways that Janna's okay with Kate. But in general, if you take her with Ezreal, you're just losing a lot of roaming opportunity costs because you don't need that safety blanket with Ezreal. He's really safe anyways. Alright, so she's bad against Soraka, Vayne, Twitch, and Ziggs. So Soraka, because you can't engage on her, you have to kill Soraka. If they have a Soraka, you have to have a champion that can go in there and actually kill her, or can CC her and help your team kill her. And you just don't have that. So she's going to outscale you later in the game because she can heal much more often, and it's going to be much more impactful than your shielding later in the game. So Soraka's public enemy number 1. Do not pick Janna into Soraka. Vayne, also bad because it's going to scale harder than your ADC probably. Twitch is going to scale harder than your ADC. So it's bad picking them into that. And Ziggs. So Ziggs has enough poke. Like, you can shield his poke if you want to, but you just don't really have a way to get on the Ziggs, and Ziggs is such a menace that you really have to get to him and kill him. Okay, so the recommended items: Ionian Boots, Redemption Locket, Ruby Sightstone. Optional, Mikhail's Crucible if they have a lot of hard CC, so if they have like a Lux or a won't work against Malzahar. Nautilus, Veigar, just things that are going to be able to do a lot of CC, Morgana, and someone keeps getting hit by those things, it might be a good idea to take that. ZZ'Rot, Jury's out. I think if you need extra siege, it can be a good item. We'll see. Like I said, I haven't tested that yet, but ZZ'Rot, it's kind of an option on basically every support. If you need a bit more siege potential, ZZ'Rot's always out there. So I don't recommend these as a core, but there are certain situations where you might want to get them. I don't like other items like Ardent Sensors. Okay. I mean, maybe if you just need to do a bit more damage with your Caitlyn and she gets Hurricane, you can get Ardent Sensor. I mean, it's okay, but I would much rather have Locket, Redemption. And if you're going Locket and Redemption, then you need Ruby Sightstone to lower that cooldown. And you need some kind of boots. So usually this is all I have money for in games. Some games I can't even complete all of these items. But if you have a bit of extra gold, one of these is a decent final item. As far as runes, you just go Armor, Health and Armor, CDR, and then Move Speed and Armor. So I really like CDR runes on almost everybody. It's just so important. If you have a 335 base move speed, or somewhere around 330, which is what a lot of supports have, that's 10 extra move speed. So 3% of 300 is 9, and then you get roughly a third of an extra 100, gives you 10. So it's a bonus 10 move speed. which is really big, I think. It lets you rotate to middle. It just lets you be where you need to be a lot of the time. And it scales really well later in the game. So that 10 movement speed is not going to go out of style as the game goes on. Whereas something like, you know, having an extra 4 armor is not really going to save you later in the game. Being able to move 10 faster than somebody actually will save you later in the game. So I think that's a decent option there. All right, and then Wind Speaker, of course, would be the mastery that you would use. All right, so next up, we have Malzahar. So I'm going to make an entire, like, guide for each one of these champions pretty soon. It's going to be over the next few weeks, probably, but I'm going to try to come up with some individual guides. But Malzahar, I'm convinced, is, if not the best support, very, very far up the list. And there's a variety of reasons for this. Watch my Malzahar playlist if you haven't seen it yet. But, let me see here. It kind of annoys me that these aren't like tabbed over correctly, but whatever, we'll get over it. So why Malzahar? He has extremely high base damage. Like his W minions do an extreme amount of damage early on. Let me see here. I think I had. Okay, so I have this opened up. I've done the math on this that I talked about on stream a couple of streams ago. So at level 5, you have 3 points in W. If you cast both of your minions, this is how the math works. You hit them twice, okay? Each time the minions hit people, they double. So you just cast the minions on them, they hit them, spawns 2 new minions, they hit them. That's 6 hits. It deals 60 damage on hit. That's 360 damage from minions. All they have to do is hit them twice. Boom, boom, 360 damage. That's obscene. Like, that's more... That's like double what most level 1 ultimates are. That's like a level 2 ultimate. That's like a level 11 thing on a pretty powerful AP mage would do 360 damage. This does it at level 5 as a basic ability. And that's not it. If they don't run away, let's say you get 3 rounds on them. So you hit them once, that's 2 hits. You hit them again, that's 4 hits. Those 2 that you just spawned, they also spawn new ones. So then it's 6 on the next hit. That's 12 total hits. And they can do that if someone sits in it for about 3 seconds. Or less. Probably about 2.5 seconds, because you get the first hit without having to wait. Whatever. Really quickly, 2.5 to 3 seconds. 12 hits. 720 damage. 720 damage off of a level 5 ability in 2 to 3 seconds. Just off of minions. That's not including if you auto-attack them, or if you cast Malefic Visions on them, or if you hit them with a Q, or anything else. That is strictly just putting minions on them. And these minions will chase them. They have to run all the way back to their tower. So that's another thing. It's like, when you're playing Malzahar, bottom lane, if you're right here, you drop a minion right next to somebody, they have to run. So they have to run immediately back to their tower to get rid of that thing, because it's going to kill them. So while they're running over here and running back, they're going to miss 1 or 2 minions. So every time they want to last hit a minion, just put the stuff on them and make them run back to tower. It's ridiculous. You can zone people out so hard with that. This doesn't happen a lot, but if you have an AD carry that you duo with, just try to freeze the wave right here, walk up, and then just drop a minion every time they want to come up to the wave. The minion's on a very low cooldown. It costs virtually no mana. They can't fight you. They have to run to the wave. So, I mean, I have single-handedly double-killed people, virtually single-handedly double-killed people at level 1 with these minions. Like, they're obscenely powerful. If people start figuring out about this, and I think a lot of challengers and pro players are starting to figure this out, he's going to get nerfed. But before he gets nerfed, play him a lot. He's extremely powerful. And watch I'm going to have a guide, like I said, and watch the playlist of videos, and I show you kind of how to play him. Or come watch a stream. I play him a lot on stream, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday. But he's really good with Ezreal, Caitlyn, and Ashe in particular. He's very good with Jhin as well. I'll put Jhin on here too. Because if Jhin hits his W on somebody, and the minions are on him, they're going to have to flash and heal or they're dead. If it's a good Jhin. So why Ezreal and Caitlyn? So Ezreal and Caitlyn, because they're very safe in lane, which means that you can go roam and use your ultimate to kill middle. That's another thing about Malzahar, is he's very good into things like Janna. It seems like he wouldn't be, right? Because Janna can disrupt and stop his ultimate if you do it in her lane. But you can go middle and kill the mid laner, or go invade the jungle with your jungler and kill the jungler. You can kill whoever you want with Malzahar with his ultimate. If you have a numbers advantage, if it's like 1v2, they're going to die. or they might be able to live if they flash. But it's a very, very high probability if you ult somebody middle lane at level 6, they're going to die. So, yeah, that's just really powerful. And if your Ezreal or Caitlyn is on your team, then that means that they should be able to farm pretty well from a distance because they're safe, especially Ezreal. Super safe, and you should be able to roam around and make a lot of plays. So that's one way you can beat Janna. If you're just like, you know, I don't know if I want to play Soraka against Janna, they have too many assassins. And just ignore your lane. Just say, you know what, Janna's not going to pressure and kill anybody, so I'm just going to go top or go middle and get a kill middle with my ultimate every time it's up, which is every 2 minutes. So, yeah, very, very powerful with them. With Ashe, obviously, you can ult somebody, and then that gives her a free hit with her arrow as well. So they're going to be CC'd for like 5 seconds. That's going to be a kill. Janna just explained. So she's very good against, or Malzahar is very good against Vayne, Twitch, Riven, Ahri, and Blitzcrank. So, Vayne and Twitch, because you're able to lock down, you know, and just make sure that people can kill them before they do a lot of damage. Now, yes, they can get QSS, but will they actually do that in solo queue? Be honest. How many ADCs do you see actually get a QSS? Very, very few. So, if you're top end to play, if you're diamond or higher, you know, I'm not sure. I still think he's a great pick, even up there. But just keep in mind they will get QSS. So, you don't want to use your ult on someone that has a QSS up. Very good against Riven for the same reason, or any kind of squishy thing like Camille. Just really anybody that doesn't have a QSS. You can even do it on tanks. It does do percentage damage, and it does keep them busy for 2.5 seconds, and it gives your AD carry free hits on them. So, it's very good to use on almost anything, especially squishy targets. And he's particularly good against champions like Blitzcrank or Thresh, because your spell shield means they can't hook you. So you're immune to the hook because of the Malzahar spell shield. And if you're quick enough and smart enough, you can pop a minion down in front of somebody, and actually the minion will get hooked by the Thresh or the Blitzcrank hook. Or if a Rammus is trying to roll into you, you can drop a minion right on top of him and it stops his roll. So there's a lot of really sneaky things you can do with minions. You can use them to scout dragons. You can use them to scout bushes. There's just almost an endless array of things you can do with those minions that make them very, very powerful. So, good against hook champions like Blitzcrank. He's bad with Vayne and Twitch traditionally because they're not going to have enough burst damage early to get a kill in lane with you. And if you roam to try to go get a kill middle, they're very vulnerable. So they might actually die because they don't have very good escapes and not very long range early on. So I don't recommend picking him with Twitch or Vayne. You're better off picking something like a Janna with them. But he's good with virtually anything else that can take care of itself bot lane and or has a lot of burst damage bot lane. Okay, so he's bad against things that have really long range or things that can make themselves immune to spells. So Caitlyn, Lux, and Ziggs, very long range, pretty popular, pesky champions. You can work around them, but they are annoying to have to deal with. Rengar is a nightmare because his empowered W now makes him immune to CC for like 2.5 seconds. So that's ridiculous. If you're playing against a good Rengar player, that'll do that to you. And Gangplank, of course, can cleanse it with his oranges. So any champion that gets a free kind of anti-CC is going to be a problem. But otherwise, very powerful. Now, the recommended items, you have 2 different builds. This is the only support I can think of that has 2 different viable build paths. Like, you can either build damage or utility, both of which can be very strong, depending on what your team needs. So the damage build's the most popular one that you'll see a lot of pro players and other people do in solo queue. It's Ionian Boots, Rylai's Crystal Scepter, Liandry's, and Eye of the Watchers. As a final item, you could get Locket or ZZ'Rot Portal if you have a bit of extra gold. This is a very expensive build because Liandry's is super expensive. Rylai's is pretty expensive for a support item, so in most games, I don't even complete Liandry's. But this is the damage build. It's quite powerful. It's just a lot of penetration. The Rylai's is the key here because it's the slow on the minions. So you definitely want Rylai's as fast as possible. It's only possible that you should get Rylai's in the utility build as well. But, you know, the reason is your minions apply the slow. And one thing you can do is, so obviously that's good for holding them in place so that minions keep hitting them and other people can catch them. But if you're running away, it makes it impossible for people to chase you. Because what happens is, let's say that this first tower is down, and you have somebody, whatever, your mid laner mage is pushed up to here. and they get ganked by the jungler and the mid laners right here. And they're trying to run away. They're getting chased. What you can do is you drop a minion. As soon as it hits somebody for the first little bit, then it slows them by the 15%. And it generates a new minion at your point, so where you are. So whenever these new minions spawn, they spawn on you. So what happens is, let's say you're running away, drop a minion here. It hits somebody. You're right here by the time it hits them. Then it drops a minion here. They're still running forward. They walk into that one. It hits them again. It slows them. Then it drops another one here. Then it hits them again. So it creates a line of minions down the lane that keep hitting them so that they never, ever get away from that slow. And it basically lasts forever, or at least for 12 seconds, because the minions are going to keep hitting them and slowing them. So it actually gives you a way to peel when allies are trying to run away from things, because that's what Malzahar doesn't have. He has really good engage, but he doesn't have awesome peel in those kind of really bad situations where people are trying to run. So the Ryze actually lets him create a line of minions and a perma-slow on somebody so that they can't catch your whoever they're trying to catch. So very, very powerful item on Malzahar. I think maybe that change to the Ryze Crystal Scepter is one thing that made him a lot more viable, and the change to the minions a couple of patches ago, which I'll talk about in the Malzahar individual guide that I'm going to make here in the next couple of days. Okay, the other build you can do is Redemption and Locket Classic. It makes you a bit tankier. It's really good for team fighting. So this one, you're just kind of engaging. You want to pick this one if your team already has a ton of damage. You don't need more damage. You need a bit more tankiness and utility. Team fighting, this is what you'd want to do. So you just go Ionian Boots, Redemption, Locket. You're still going to do a lot of damage. Minion base damage is very high. Your ultimate is percentage health damage. So it's still going to do a lot of damage. And then you could sneak in a Ryze somewhere in here if you really need a little bit of extra kite, or the ZZ'Rot if you need extra push. Runes I recommend, dual pin runes, yellow health and armor, blue quints, and the 2 move speed 1 armor. I think the best mastery is Thunderlords. There is an argument for Deathfire Touch if you're going to go for the damage build, but I think Thunderlords is overall better, and a big part of that... let me see, Malzahar here. Where are masteries? There we go. So a big part of that is you're able to get the precision, which gives you a lot of base penetration, both magic and physical penetration. So this is one reason why I like Thunderlords. If you go down this tree, you get percentage magic penetration, but that's not nearly as good early game where you're going to be doing a lot of damage with these minions. I'd rather have the flat penetration rather than the percentage penetration. So I think this ends up giving you 7.5%. If someone has like 30%, I guess you might get about 3% pen, but I really like precision. I can tell a big difference early on if I don't have that. Just the dual pin is so helpful. It stacks with the dual pin that you already have, so it just gives you a lot of early penetration for that minion damage early on. And I think this is good. Ability damage. These are good. This is nice extra damage. But I'll tell you what, every time I don't have Explorer, I really miss it. Because I run up and down that river so much, trying to gank, trying to control Scuttle, trying to ward. That extra 15 move speed in the river is a really, really big deal, I feel like. I mean, that's like an extra 5% move speed, basically, when you're running around. Which is super helpful. And having the health helps you in all ends early on. That's like an extra 10% health. On Malzahar, I mean, the health regen's kind of whatever, but then having that extra cooldown reduction on both your exhaust and your flash is very, very strong. Obviously, he's really good with flash, because you can flash ult. That's a dead person usually, so... I don't know, you are giving up damage for sure, but if your team already has enough damage, you know, I recommend going for the Insight and the Explorer. It's just... Explorer in particular, it just feels really, really good having that extra 15 move speed. So... I don't know. These are the masteries that I recommend. Either this if you need more damage, or down here to this if you need more. I have experimented with Colossus. It does give you the nice extra shield early on. But losing precision is a really big deal. And not having... Thunderlords is okay. Your minions don't proc it if they hit 3 times. You have to hit with different spells. So you have to like hit them with a minion and then auto attack them and then Q them to proc it. But it still is decent damage. Like I said, DFT is good if you're building a lot of AP, but the problem is a lot of times you don't. You just build penetration with the Leandries and the Ryze. So, and you don't have really good poke. So I don't know. It's okay. I think having Precision and Thunder Lords is much better for the early game. So I really like going for this into this if you want the damage build, or over here if you want the utility. Okay, so that's it for Malzahar. He's really good. I'm only going to go this in depth for like the first two, and then I'm just going to work my way down with just a sentence or two about the rest of these. So hopefully we can finish these up pretty quickly. All right, Nautilus. So Nautilus is still awesome. Reason that Nautilus is great is he has awesome engage, he has 4 different forms of CC, and he's super tanky. So he's really good at just rounding up these assassins and starting fights. So one problem with Malzahar is he has a little bit lower range and he's not tanky. So if you go in, not that tanky. So if you go in and ult somebody and your team doesn't follow up and kill that person, or if it's like in traffic, if there's like 4 other people sitting around, they can just kill you. Whereas with Nautilus, when you engage and hit someone with your hook or with your ultimate, you can still go in and feel pretty safe that they're not going to blow you up that quickly. And he has a lot more AoE damage. Well, Malzahar has a lot of AoE damage with his critters, but either way, Nautilus has decent AoE damage, more forms of CC, and he can reliably engage and not die. So if you really need a hard engage champion, Nautilus is your pick. He's great with Ezreal, Kate, and Draven. So he's good with Ezreal and Kate for the same reason that Malzahar is. They're very safe, and that lets you go roam middle lane and use your ultimate to kill middle if you want. With Draven, because he can peel for Draven, and he can fight early. So if you hit someone with a hook, you can pretty much go all in with Draven and probably kill them early on. So Malzahar can go all in early, but they're going to be running away probably. If they have played against Malzahar before and they're smart, they'll run away when your minions get on them. So it makes it a bit less reliable. But with Nautilus, they're going to be standing still for quite a while. They're going to have to flash out of it probably if you hit them with a hook on the 80 carry. Because Draven's just going to murder them. While they, because the hook has like a 0.5 second CC, and then you auto attack them, that's another half second, and then you slow them with your E, and then you've already landed 2 or 3 autos on them, so you've already done probably like 250 damage to them, and they're going to be like crawling away from you, and Draven's just going to sit there pounding on them. So I think he's going to be really good with new Draven. He's good against Vayne, Twitch, Jinx, and Ziggs, because these two he can press R, lock him up if you need to kill him. It's not quite as reliable as Malzahar's because it's slower. Twitch is going to get a few shots off before that missile hits him. Same thing with Vayne, and if you're in the cast animation and she rolls, it cancels the cast, which is really annoying. Great against long-range champions like Ziggs, Lux, things like that, because his hook is very far range, and if you hook him, once again, he has the tankiness to survive it. So it's really good. He's not as great with Vayne or Twitch because he doesn't provide a lot of peel. So, I mean, he does peel. What am I trying to say? He doesn't stop assassins. That's a better way to say it. So if like Rengar jumps out and attacks your Vayne, you're probably not going to get an auto or a Q or an R off or anything. She's just going to die before you can do anything. Whereas with Janna, you can like press R instantly and peel him back and heal her simultaneously. Also, these two are not safe, so that means you can't roam middle, and they don't do a lot of damage early, so if you hook somebody, you're probably not going to kill them early on. And so he does, these champions just really need a babysitter, and he's not nearly as good at babysitting as other options are. So he's bad against Braum, Yasuo. They can stop his missile with their various abilities. Same thing with Morgana and Tahm Kench. And Ezreal is so long range, and he can flash away and get away before your missile, like it's going to hit him, but he might be able to get away to safety. So these 4 in particular are good because they create problems for his ultimate. Ezreal is just kind of a pest that's hard to get to. So I just recommend the standard Redemption Locket, Ruby Sightstone build, runes, basically the same thing as Janna. Just a lot of armor, CDR, and move speed, and Courage of the Colossus. Alright, next class. So Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench has fallen down. Just check the time here. Got about 10 more minutes to try to wrap it up. Tahm Kench is still really good, but he has fallen off primarily because he's not that great against Vayne and Twitch because he doesn't have hard lock CC. So that's the primary reason I haven't been playing him nearly as much. But if Malzahar and Nautilus become very popular supports, he's very, very good against them because he cancels their ult. So if the meta shifts a little bit and people don't play Vayne and Twitch as much, he's still pretty good against Draven because Draven's really risky and you can, hit him with your tongue lash and getting close. if people start playing Draven a lot more and that pushes Vayne and Twitch out of the meta, then, you know, maybe he'll move up a little bit. Or if people start playing Nautilus, like I said, Nautilus or Malzahar, he can be pretty good. So he's good with Jhin, Kate, and Jinx. If he eats them, spits them out on the back line, then they still have long-range abilities. They can contribute to a fight. So Jhin and Caitlyn and Jinx, they can all ult and still be very impactful. So if one of them gets caught, for example, you know, like right here, you can eat them. Everyone else dogpiles in to try to help out. You spit them out on the back line. They can still cast their ult and be very impactful. And they just have long-range abilities. Like Caitlyn can Q, Jhin can use his W, Jinx can do the Chomper thing, and they have pretty long attack ranges too. So they're really good because you can save them and they can still be relevant in a fight. Whereas someone like Vayne or Lucian, if you spit them out on the back line, they have to jump back in and get closer to danger to contribute to the fight. They don't have any long-range abilities. So Ziggs would be another one that he'd be good with, for the same reasons. Okay, so he's good against Leona, Lee Sin, Lux, Malzahar, Nautilus, just anything that has hard lock CC that's very dangerous where you need to save allies. So anything where an ally might need a QSS to get out of trouble, you can be that QSS as Tahm Kench and save him. So he's bad with Vayne, Lucian, and just other things that aren't going to scale very well, like Tristana, stuff like that. Oh no. Sorry, I got a message from my wife. Her back's hurting her today. So he's bad against Twitch, Vayne. They're just too powerful. Hecarim and Kha'Zix he's really bad against because he's very good against Vi too. I forgot to mention that because he cancels Vi's ult. So if Vi gets really popular, he's good against Vi. He's bad against Twitch and Vayne because they just outscale and you can't really get on them reliably. Hecarim and Kha'Zix because after you eat somebody, they're going to be able to run them down. They're very fast. They have a lot of very high persistent damage. So eating them usually isn't enough to save them. Sorry, just need a little snack there. Standard Redemption to Locket build. Knight's Vow is a good option. It's a third big item. And Courage of the Colossus. It seems a little counterintuitive with Tahm Kench, but if you stun them with your Q, or if you offensively eat somebody with your W, then you would proc the Courage of the Colossus. So it's good for all ends early on. And that, frankly, there's just not another good option out there. I mean, Grassly Undying, maybe it's a really lackluster mastery right now. Bond of Stone is pretty garbage. I mean, it's okay, I guess. But I think Courage is still probably the best one to go with there. Even though it seems a little weird, it's situational. I mean, I guess it's possible that maybe Grassly Undying, if you think you're going to be in really long team fights, could be better. Or if they have Burst, maybe Bond of Stone. But I just feel like Courage of the Colossus is really good for all ends when you want to eat somebody. It does proc it. Okay. We'll pick up the pace here a little bit. So we'll go Sona. Get rid of Tahm. So Sona's very good as a babysitter primarily. I had kind of thought that maybe she wouldn't be as good because of assassins, which is true, but they still are picking assassins, but early on, if you can just keep Vayne and Twitch from dying, and if they're anywhere close on CS, then it can be good enough. She's also pretty good with Caitlyn, a classic kind of poke lane if you want to bully out something like a Vayne. That can be good. And a classic combo as well as Misfortune. So if you ult somebody and then Misfortune ult somebody, that's a lot of damage in a team fight. Great against Janna and Nami. She scales a little bit better. Well, I don't know if she scales better than Janna, but she can bully them out early, and she scales at least as well as these champions later on in the game. Not as good with Ezreal, Jhin, Lucian, and Tristana, because they don't scale nearly as hard as other champions. So if they have the Vayne or the Twitch, it's going to be a problem. You don't want to pick Sona into that a lot of times. You can bully them out early. It just depends. But if it gets to the late game, they're just going to blow you up. Same thing with Hecarim. He's just going to run you down, and Soraka's going to out-heal you later in the game. So a lot of this depends. It's kind of a conflict of interest. Like, for example, if you have the Vayne and the Twitch, and they have the Hecarim, it might still be worth it to run Sona if they have something like a Kate Nami that's going to harass you really hard early on. So a lot of this, you know, you might have to pick them into a bad situation if it's particularly good with Vayne or Twitch. Okay, so Redemption, Locket, standard build. You can get Mikhail's if you need to get somebody out of CC later. The same runes that I use and the mastery that I use for Janna. Just move speed, CDR, and a little mix of health and armor. Okay, so pick her, babysitter for Vayne or Twitch. That's the main reason I would pick her right now. Or maybe Misfortune if you want to try to set up a wombo combo composition. Alright, Lulu. So Lulu's pretty strong right now. I don't have a super high win percentage with her. Lulu's extremely hard to play correctly. There's a lot of different options and ways you can build her and ways you can approach her in team fights. But she's really good if you have champions that need a lot of speed to engage. So particularly if you have Olaf or Hecarim, consider Lulu. Because if you put the W on them and they get to run in, that's very, very helpful. She's very good with Yasuo because you can instant click, knock somebody up if somebody's close, and that gives Yasuo a free ultimate. And she's very good with Vayne and Twitch. She can kind of babysit early, but you can put the speed on them in a team fight that helps keep them safe, and you can shield them, and you can ult them in team fights. So she's very good against champions that want to do high burst damage, where you need that single target, boom, somebody gets, 500 extra health, it keeps them alive on top of your shield. So Janna can blow people back and heal over time, but that's retroactive. So that means that, some of these assassins may have already done their damage by the time you get that off. So, for example, Fizz, if he hits him with a fish and he does this little thing and he's about to land on somebody, they're probably going to die before Janna can blow him back and heal him. Whereas with Lulu, if you just ult them and shield them, they might be able to survive it. So she has more preventative damage mitigation, which can be helpful in a lot of situations. So and you can CC people, so it... if they have an assassin like a Rengar or a Kha'Zix, Lulu can be pretty good because you can turn them into critters, and that helps out a lot in many situations. Very good against Malzahar, too, because you can turn Malzahar into a critter and stop him if you knock off his spell shield and stop him from ulting. And you can save the person that he's ulting with your ultimate, so... she's pretty good against those champions. She's bad with Lucian, Tristana, and Ezreal for the same reasons I've described with Janna. They're probably going to have an ADC that outscales these champions if they have, Draven, Caitlyn, Twitch, or Vayne. So you're kind of fighting a losing battle there. And she's bad against Soraka, Vayne, Twitch, and Ziggs. So she doesn't have any heal, so Ziggs can eventually poke your team down. Soraka's going to out-heal Lulu later in the game. You have no engage to kill Soraka, and you don't have any real engage to deal with Vayne and Twitch. So she's not great into those picks. So same deal, Redemption, Locket, Ruby Sightstone, just your standard Janna runes here. And I like Wind Speaker if you need to scale later in the game. If you want to try to bully out people early, you can do Thunder Lords, but I don't pick her with bully champions a lot. But for example, let's say you have Hecarim on your team, so you want her for Hecarim, and then your AD picks something like Jhin. And the other, they have like a Jhin Thresh or something, and you want to bully them out early, then you can pick Thunder Lords instead of Wind Speaker. The problem with Wind Speaker on Lulu is it doesn't affect your ultimate because it just gives them health. It doesn't heal them, it gives them health. So a lot of the plus healing items like Redemption, like Wind Speaker, don't actually work that well on Lulu. It still affects her shield, but it doesn't affect her ultimate, unlike Janna, where all of that affects Janna's ultimate. So that's important to keep in mind. Okay, Soraka. So I think Soraka can be very good. She's great against champions that can't really get on you and kill you. So she's pretty good with Ezreal, Kate, Hecarim, and Maokai. She can just heal them up, keep them safe in lane. It's just going to be a farm off. And she's good with these tanky champions because any champions that build resistances like armor and magic resist, your health is more valuable. I explained this in my itemization guide if you haven't seen that yet. But for instance, if someone has 100 armor with Hecarim and you heal somebody for 300, it's going to take 600 AD to cut through that armor plus that heal. So it becomes much, much stronger to heal tanks with Soraka than to heal someone like a Riven who might get one-shotted anyways before you can heal him. So great with tanks, great with safe lanes, especially lanes that scale, and lanes that don't need a lot of peel. So Kate and Ezreal don't need a lot of peel, and Vayne just does so much damage that if you can just keep her safe until later in the game, it's usually good to go. So she's great against Janna and Lulu. They can't pressure you early. You just get a free lane for healing. She's great against Lee Sin, because if he tries to go in and get cute, With his Q, you can just silence him, and she's great against Ziggs because you can heal through the harass that he puts down. He's bad with, or Soraka's bad with Twitch because you're not going to have a lot of peel if they get on the Twitch. At least Vayne can kind of roll away and condemn people. And not that great with things like Jhin or Misfortune where you want to try to bully people out early that are going to fall behind later in the game. So she's pretty bad against Hecarim, Vi, Nautilus, LeBlanc, Katarina. Things that can really jump on you and kill you very quickly. Jesus. Sorry, that's kind of loud. That's someone... I kept my Streamlabs open on accident, so sorry about that. That was really loud. She's good against those champions. Okay, so Standard Redemption Locket, Ruby Sightstone, Rune, same as Janna, and Windspeaker Blessing. So pick Soraka if they don't have Hard Engage or Assassins, then you're probably going to win the game. If they don't kill you and you're Soraka, you're probably going to win the game, especially if you have high damage threats. Okay, Zilean, or we'll do Zyra first. I need to wrap this up pretty soon. Okay, so Zyra has kind of fallen out of favor. I prefer Malzahar in virtually every situation. There are, however, some where Zyra can be good. If you have a lane where you can blow people up early on, then Zyra can be very, very good in lane because she holds people in place and does tremendous spike damage at level 6. So if you have things that do a lot of damage like Draven, Jhin, Lucian, Misfortune, or Caitlyn early on, Caitlyn because you can put the trap on them with the plants and it holds them in the plants easier. I mean, I guess Jinx could fit that criteria as well if she throws the chompers on them if you root them with the plant. But all of these champions are pretty good. You have to get kills early because you're going to fall off a lot later in the game because you don't have any utility option. You have to go Leontries, Ryze, and you're probably going to be hitting tanks with those later in the game or getting assassinated if they don't have tanks. So Zyra gets a lot worse after 25 minutes. But if you can really dominate the early game, especially with the new Draven, then it can be very good. Now, the jungle, as we described earlier, did get nerfed a lot, so you might be undisturbed bottom lane for enough time to get some kills. So we'll see. I mean, that's one reason that I haven't been playing her as much lately is there's such a Clown Fiesta bottom so early in the game that you can't really utilize Zyra's strength, which is bullying people out and killing them 2v2 in lane because it's never a 2v2 lane. It's always like a 4v2 lane, bottom lane, on the last couple of patches. So if the junglers dial back the aggression a little bit, if it takes them longer to get going, that'll give you some more alone time with bot lane with Zyra, which means that she might be a little bit better. So she's good against Sona, Nami, Thresh, and Draven. All of these are pretty squishy early on. They don't have a very good way to escape your roots. They don't have any flashes or dashes, so they're going to have to use their summoner spell flash to get away if you root them at level 5 or level 6. She's not great with Vayne, Twitch, or Ezreal. These champions just don't do a lot of burst damage early on, and she doesn't give enough peel for them later for these two, and you can't really roam in the case of Ezreal. So I don't recommend her with them. She's not great against Ezreal, Caitlyn, Vayne, Hecarim, and Katarina. So she's not great against Ezreal and Kate because they can farm so far back that it makes it really hard to hit them with the plants. Also, even if you do hit them, they can just jump away afterwards without having to use their flash. It's really hard to hit Vayne too, a good Vayne, because she can roll to the side and dodge it. And just later on in the game, she's just going to murder everybody anyways, and you don't have a reliable way to get on her and kill her later, so that's problematic. Hecarim's just going to run you down later in the game. That's a huge, huge problem. You're not going to be able to kill him. Katarina is just going to assassinate and kill you later. So all of these champions are very good against Zyra. And they're all pretty popular champions too. That's part of why I haven't been playing Zyra as much. So you're going full out damage, maximum penetration as Zyra. She has really high base damages on her plants, so you just want the penetration. Sorcerer Boots, Ryze, Leontries, Eye of the Watcher, Abyssal, and Void Staff are optional. You can get Void Staff later if they have tanks. You're still probably not going to break them, but you know it's a good item to think about. Runes, you just go max pen, you go HP yellows, but everything else is penetration, so 9x red penetration, 9 blue, and 3 quints, and then Thunderlord Mastery. So pick Zyra if you can get kills in lane. That's the thing. You want to ask yourself, can I actually kill this lane 2v2? Will the jungler leave us alone long enough for me to kill him? The answer is yes. Zyra might be a good choice. Zilean, kind of a new one to the game. I haven't really practiced him a lot, so I'm just kind of speculating here. He's always impactful in every game. I don't even know if I've won a game against Zilean over the last couple of weeks. He's deceptively very, very powerful, and I haven't played with him, so I'm not sure exactly like why that is. But just thinking about it, he's really good against assassins in lower elo because he ults people, and and people just always kill him. They never let the hourglass just sit there and then kill him after it wears off. They always kill him, so the person comes back with the health, which is a mistake. You should almost always, unless the hourglass person is going to kill you, you should always wait until the little golden hourglasses wear off and then kill them. It's not worth it to kill them and let them come back with full health, just to slow them down a little bit most of the time. So she's pretty good with Vayne. It lets you run people down. It lets Vayne run away from people later in the game. It might be good against Hecarim or Olaf. So really good with Hecarim and Olaf. So this is a place where I would think about playing him heavily, is because you have that speed up, and I think it lasts for like 2.5 seconds. It gives people like 60% move speed or something crazy when you level it up. So that's very, very good with Olaf and Hecarim, and it can help Vayne get away from things as well. So he speeds people up. That's very good. The double bombs do a lot of damage early on. So with Draven, if you double bomb somebody and you have a Draven in your lane, you're probably going to kill him. Kate can stack a trap on him, kill him as well. So double bombs early if you can hit him. It's really good. Especially the combo is you throw the slow on him and then you throw the double bomb. And it's just a ton of damage at level 4. Not that great with weaker scaling AD carry. So Ezreal, Tristana, and with Twitch, he's okay, but the problem is if they blow up the Twitch and you revive him, then when he comes back to life, he's not going to be that useful because he doesn't have his ultimate anymore. He's a very ultimate reliant champion, so they're just going to kill him again. So I don't think he's that great with Twitch. So probably pretty bad against Soraka, Vayne, and Ziggs. So Vayne does enough persistent damage to where if you save somebody with your ultimate, they're still going to kill him. Again, with Vayne. With Ziggs, they can poke you out. You can save against the Ziggs all in with his ultimate, but they're ultimately in the end, they're just going to poke you out with Ziggs probably, and you have no heal, so that's really bad. And Soraka is just going to heal through a lot of your harass. She's really good at very long fights, so if you save somebody, there's a good chance it's not going to matter because Soraka is just going to save all of her people too. And he doesn't give a really good, easy way to get on Soraka. So, but once again, this could differ as well. So if you have Hecarim on your team, you might want Zilean, even if they have Soraka, because you can, speed Hecarim into the Soraka to kill her. So, you got to kind of weigh these against each other sometimes. You can't have a perfect pick where it's good with something, it's good against something, and it's not bad against something else. So, okay, I recommend the Locket Redemption Ruby Sightstone. You can build him AP if you want. I'm not sure what you would build. I don't think you want penetration with him, so you wouldn't go Leandri's, Ryze. I mean, maybe like Death Cap or something. But that item's just so expensive. Maybe Abyssal? I don't really know. Like I said, I haven't practiced him. I'll have to study up, but he seems like he can be pretty good. Then I recommend just going AP because that helps you out early on in terms of how much damage you do, and it scales with your ultimate to give people back more health when you ult them at a 200% ratio, so that's pretty good. And the magic penetration is just kind of the best that Red has to offer. And Thunderlords. I mean, it doesn't seem great on him, but I just don't know what else you would take as a mastery with him. The Wind Speakers obviously is bad. The thing where you get to run around the Storm Raiders doesn't seem good. Maybe Deathfire Touch. If you're going to go for the AP build, maybe you go Deathfire Touch. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't studied him a lot, but I think he deserves to be in the tier 2 of the tier list, just because I always see him do very well. He's very powerful, and conceptually he makes sense in this meta. I just don't know the exact item and runes that are perfect on him, but I think this is a pretty good setup. Okay. One more Nami as my tier 2 list. So I think Sona's better than Nami now in the vast majority of situations after playing Sona. And the reason is you can roam middle if you want to with Sona. So if you're against a Janna, for example, which is where you would pick Sona most of the time, you can actually roam middle and get kills with the Sona ult. And then rotate back bottom. And she can rotate pretty quickly with her E to help people run around. So I would pick Sona into most matchups now where I used to pick Nami. But Nami is still good in some matchups. So if you have people that want to run people down, like Vayne is very good with Vayne. Twitch. So she's a good babysitter for Vayne and Twitch. Pretty good with Caitlyn and Olaf and Hecarim. Once again, you can speed them up with your E, get them in. As they get hits, they're not going to be able to run away. She's good against Thresh, Jhin, and ZZ'Rot. So Thresh, because it's really easy to hit bubbles on him, has a pretty large hitbox. He doesn't have a lot of escape. So if you want to go aggressive, if you have like a Draven in your lane or something and you want to pick Nami against the Thresh, that's a decent option. Remember that Thresh is basically made of paper. He has almost no armor or magic resist, so he's almost the easiest champion in the game to kill in early levels. He has like 16 base armor. Okay, so he's good against, or Nami, she's good against Jhin and ZZ'Rot because they have these really long-range channeled ultimates, and her wave can actually get to them and knock them out of their ultimate. Now, they're still going to get a couple of hits in before your wave gets to them, but it's a decent choice into those champions in some situations. There's not really something that she's bad with per se. In terms of lane, she can babysit and heal almost anything. Ezreal, she's not great with because it's just going to be a farm off lane. Although, if your Ezreal goes Trinity Force, having that slow with your E can be really good on him. So it just depends if he's going Frozen Fist or Trinity Force. If he's going Frozen Fist, it's pretty bad with Ezreal. If he's going Trinity Force, it can be good later on. But she doesn't really have things that she's that bad with. But she's bad against Soraka, Vayne, LeBlanc, Hecarim. So things that can assassinate her and get to her really easily. Things that are going to outscale your ADC if you don't have good quality engage. And Soraka because she's just going to out-heal you later on in the game. And you don't have good engage for her. Alright. Recommended items, standard Redemption Locket build, runes, armor, and Wind Speaker at the end. Okay. So that's it. These are the champions that I recommend. If you're looking for champions to play a lot of, to gain a lot of elo, I recommend playing the S-Class and the A-Class champions. These are really good in almost anything, and these are very good in the situations that I described. So each of these has a very unique identity that they can do to help your team out, and they're very good against very specific compositions. So they are very strong. So Soraka can be the most overpowered support in the game against the right kind of composition if they don't have any engage or assassins on their team. Similarly, Zyra can look extremely overpowered in lane if you have a Draven and you get a lot of kills early on. Tahm Kench can look very overpowered if he cancels anything that the enemy's trying to do, right? So if they, hit somebody with a Vi ult or a Malzahar ult or a Nautilus ult and you keep canceling it, he can look overpowered. So each of these champions have a role, and they are very powerful in the right circumstances. So I recommend picking these up. Definitely learn these three. And then I think Sona as your all-time babysitter. Soraka as just sort of your OP if they don't have engaged champion. And maybe Lulu as your speed-up champion. Those would be the three that I would recommend. Zilean, the jury's kind of out on that, but definitely master these first four and these three, I think, if you want to win a lot in solo queue. Okay, so here's the rest of them. And I'm not going to go through and talk a lot about all of these. There's a ton of them here. But basically, the B-class champions are pretty good, but they get outclassed by a lot of other champions. So Blitzcrank can be good. You can dominate with him if you hit a lot of hooks. Nautilus, very, very similar effects. You can hook people, but Nautilus is tankier, and he has way more forms of CC. So if you like Blitzcrank, I highly recommend Nautilus. Skarner can be good. I do have a few Skarner videos on the channel. He's a weird one. He's very fast, and he can really deal with assassins well. He CCs him for about 2 seconds with his ultimate, and you can pull him back into your team to get him out of position. So, and he's very, very fast. That's the thing with Skarner. Very, very fast. So if you want to go invade their jungler with your jungler, or rotate mid laner and catch people out, kill them, Skarner can be very good. I think that Malzahar outshines him the vast majority of the time because Malzahar can actually do a lot of damage in lane, and he can CC people for just about as long. But Skarner against a very heavy melee assassin composition might be better because Skarner can also build really tanky, and he's innately very tanky with his shield. So if you're playing Malzahar and you're afraid assassins might kill you, like if they have like 3 assassins and they're all just going to gang up and kill you while you're channeling your ult, then Skarner might be a better choice because you could pull one of them and still be pretty tanky for the rest. And he has, like, if everybody's going to be clumped up, if you have like AoE ults and things like that, if you hit people, multiple people with your, I think it's his E, that has that stun on it, then you can get a bunch of extra stuns off. So Skarner does have a place. He can be good, but he's usually outshined by Malzahar. Thresh, I really don't recommend Thresh for most people in solo queue. He's basically made of paper. I'm going to make a guide on him, but he has very low resistances. He's very skill shot dependent, and he's very game knowledge dependent. You have to know when to go in. You have to actually hit your hooks, and your allies have to actually take your lantern when you put it on them, which just doesn't happen a lot in solo queue. So unless you are a Thresh Grandmaster, then I would not recommend playing him. Even at people, you know, in Platinum or Low Diamond, I still would not play Thresh. Like, he can do good things, but he's just got a lot of problems. Once again, I think Nautilus is better. He just has a much more reliable hook. He has way more CC, and he's way tankier. So I think that Nautilus is a big deal. Also with Thresh, he's not good against hyper carries. So he can't lock down the Twitch or the Vayne reliably. Like, yeah, you can maybe hit him with a hook, but do you really want to rely on that? Like, you have to hit a Vayne who's rolling around going invisible with a hook, or your whole team's going to die. I don't want to be in that position. I'd rather press R with Nautilus or Malzahar and make sure that Vayne gets dealt with. Okay, Trundle, very powerful. Trundle might deserve a spot up here in the A class. I just bumped him down because a lot of people aren't playing tanks right now, but he is the ultimate tank breaker with his ultimate. So Trundle, very strong. If people will start playing things like Nautilus and Malachi top, you might consider Trundle. Trundle just has a lot of problems against assassins and hyper carries. So if they're picking things like Twitch and Vayne, and Katarina, which I think a lot of people are going to be picking those champions, Trundle has problems with that. Oh, hi. I've got the cat here. Oh, come on. She's kind of losing her balance. There we go. Morgana can be good. Suffers from sort of skill shot-itis again. You have to be able to hit your Qs. Is that reliable to hit something like a Twitch or a Vayne in a clutch situation where they're rolling around and dodging and going invisible? Really hard to do. Her ultimate super close range is very dangerous unless you have Zhonya's Hourglass. Very expensive. That means you're not getting things like Redemption and Locket, which is a huge drawback in this current meta. She can be good if they have a lot of CC, and you have something like a Twitch or a Vayne on your team. You can put the Black Shield on them. That can be quite powerful if they don't have a lot of AD. I mean, if they have an Assassin, you know, something like a Camille or a Riven, your little spell shield's not going to save them from Vayne or Twitch. So if they're relying mostly on ranged ability power CC to lock down the Twitch or the Vayne, then Morgana is a pretty good option. So you put the Black Shield on them and negate a lot of that. So she does have a place. She can be good in some situations, but I think a lot of times she gets outshined by a lot of the other peel and protect type of champions that are described up here. Miss Fortune was a really powerful pick in the last Worlds against things like Zyra, because she outranges them, but in solo queue she's just very squishy. There aren't a lot of good AD support items. She doesn't scale very well with Redemption or Locket. I mean, she has a lot of harass early game, but she falls off big time late game. Cleaver's cute if you cleaver into a bunch of enemies, but she just doesn't offer enough late game. So she can be a good bully early game, doesn't offer enough late game, and I think if you want a bully, you know, I'd pick something like Sona, Malzahar, something like that early on. Zyra. I think those are all better choices. Alistar, he's okay. I mean, he can be tanky. He still has his combo, but he lost a half second on his Q, which is a really, really big deal. He's just felt very clunky to me every time I try to play him. He doesn't have a reliable heal in lane anymore. It takes 5 seconds to channel to get that one hit. It just feels like Nautilus is better in virtually every situation if you want the kind of thing that Alistar does, which is tanky engage. Alistar's identity before the rework was he could sustain people in lane. So if you had a tough lane, if you had like a Vayne or a Twitch on your team that's really bad early, you could heal through it. And he had really good engage, and he was tanky later on. So that combo CC'd people for 1.5 seconds, and he was virtually impossible to kill. So that's what made Alistar unique, in that he was a sustain tank. No one else does that. Like Nami and Sona are very good at sustain, but they can't tank, they can't engage that well. I mean, Sona can flash ult, but that's not nearly as good as an Alistar combo used to be. So he had a very unique position, and he was an S-class champion for a very long time last season, but this rework has destroyed him. So they need to change him around. He's not in a good place right now. Braum can be good. He's just too situational. Like, he can't get that aggressive early. He's okay. I mean, if you get the 4 stacks on him for the stun, that's really good. But just why not Nautilus, you know? Nautilus is 1 stack. You hit him with 1 auto, you get a stun, instead of having to wait for 4 autos with Braum. The shield is nice against ranged things, but there's so many things that get around his shield right now. Like any kind of melee assassin type of champion is going to get through his shield to kill the AD carry. Things like Ziggs bomb is going to go over the top of it and kill your AD carry. There's just so many ways that champions that are popular right now that get around Braum. I just don't recommend him. If you want tanky peel, just play Nautilus. I mean, Braum's okay. He's just outshined by a lot of other champions. Karma just got gutted on this patch, like I just talked about. She's really hard to coordinate your speed up and engages with your team. A lot of people just aren't doing team fights. It's just a lot of skirmishing right now. So she has harass in lane, but she really falls off later in the game. Her shield is not nearly as good as a Zyra or a Lulu, or a Janna or a Lulu's shield, rather. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Karma. If you want to speed people up, if that's your thing, I would play Zilean or Lulu as the premier speed up supports right now. Leona, once again, she has really good engage. She can fight. She has no reverse gear. If you want to play Leona, just play Nautilus. He's a lot better right now. He's a lot tankier. He has a lot more reliable CC. He has an escape. You can hook walls. So, you know, it's okay. Annie, AP support, can be really good if you get very far ahead. She blows people up. But she needs very expensive items. So she needs things like Death Cap or Ludens or whatever. I mean, like Leandri's is not really that great on her. Neither is Ryze. She's very short ranged. She's easy to kill by a lot of different things. So I don't recommend her that much. Although she can be good if you get ahead. If you have a lane like Draven or something and you want to all in level 6. You know, that could be a good move. Nasus, I have tried him out. He feels okay. It just doesn't feel like it's the meta for him right now. If heavy auto attack, AD carries, and some other role with auto attacks becomes popular, like if Kindred comes back or something, he could be really good. The Wither just obliterates the attack speed of champions, which is nice against things like Caitlyn, Twitch, Vayne. That's good. But he doesn't have a lot of harass early. The team fight with his little shredding armor thing that he does with his Spirit Fire can be good. His ultimate can be good, but just like he's going to get kited everywhere and he just doesn't have enough utility. So he's interesting, he's fun, but I think he's not quite as good as other options. So things that are okay sometimes, but often underpowered, Bard can just be amazing if it's the right person, but it requires a lot of coordination with your team. People actually have to follow up on your ultimate. They have to actually take your magical journey. They have to follow up your stuns. He's just very, very situational. He takes a ton of practice, just a ton of game knowledge, especially even about the map knowledge, like how the walls are laid out so that you can get magical journeys in these really weird positions for maximum distance. So he can be very good if you play hundreds and hundreds of games with Bard, but I just wouldn't recommend him. He requires too much team coordination. Same thing with Taric. Too much team coordination, really high cooldowns, no harass early on, really kind of lackluster heal, and Sadie's out of here. She's like, why do you keep yelling at me? Lackluster heal, so I just think there's better options than Taric. He's fun. He has unique ability where everyone goes invulnerable, but I just think, you know, if you want a tank type of champion like that, just play Nautilus. Sion, just play Nautilus. I mean, he does have early game aggression. He can get a stun, but especially at higher elos, people are just not going to sit there and let you stun him with that Q. I mean, you can try to slow him with, I think it's your E. Whatever your thing is that throws minions forward, you can get the slow and then try to go in and chain that into the Q early on. It's a lot of work to try to get a stun on somebody. Most people roll out of it. His ultimate's okay. It's really easy to dodge from a long distance. I mean, he's okay. His shield is really lackluster compared to something like a Nautilus shield. So he's okay. I just think Nautilus is better. Poppy support, she just got gutted in the top lane, so she's going to have problems here now. Too situational. I mean, you can get a wall stun sometimes. She does get extra, you know, resistances, but she just has a lot of problems. She just doesn't have enough impact on the game, I don't think, a lot of times. Fiddlesticks, same, kind of like Annie, but a little bit less reliable. If he ultimates, it does do a lot of damage, so if you get really far ahead, Fiddlesticks can be good. A 2-second fear is nice, but it's extremely close range. It's only like 500 range and does no damage. His E can be good, the silence. His drain's okay. I mean, he's just extremely squishy, and a lot of his abilities are just kind of lackluster and a very, very short range compared to other options. So I think there's just better things you can be doing other than fiddlesticks. Oh, geez, this video is... I was trying to get an hour and a half. It ends up taking 2 hours. But anyways, so I don't recommend fiddlesticks. Ivern, I've played around with it. He's been nerfed a lot on his shield. If you can take Smite as Ivern and counter jungle a lot, then it could be good. They just did raise the experience on the Raptors, so if you can steal the Raptors a lot, the enemy Raptors, that could be good, but just extremely situational. You're not going to have exhaust. Maybe if you're against like a Janna Ezreal, just like a super push over lane, and you can roam around with Smite, maybe you can make it happen, but with the counter jungling. But overall, if you just want a shield disrupt type of champion, you know, I feel like there's better options. Daisy is good in team fights, and she's good at taking towers and dragons, so that's a thing. But I feel like there's just not quite enough there to make him viable. Kennen just got gutted, as we talked about before, so he's just... I mean, he can harass early on, but he's just going to fall off late game. Kayle, she can kind of harass early on. She has a heal. I think her mana costs are a bit high. Her ultimate's good for a couple of seconds, but she just needs too much gold. Like, for Kayle to be relevant, she needs, like, a Ginsu's Rage Blade and all these other items. It's possible she's a lot better than I think. I haven't played her as support in a very long time, but I just feel like she just doesn't bring enough CC to the table. Like, if you want to play somebody that saves champions and has a bit more utility like that has kind of that invulnerability ultimate, just try out Zilean. He at least has a stun if you land it. The 1.5 second stun, I think. He can speed people up, and his ultimate lasts a little bit longer. Okay. Rammus can be good. You can roam from lane to lane if you want. You can shred armor with Rammus. He just doesn't have any harass early on, and he's really easy to play around for a lot of champions. So I have tried him out in normals. He has a lot of fun. I just think he can get bullied out hardcore early on, and he's just too predictable what he's going to do. He does take towers quickly. He does. His taunt is for a very long time. It's like 2.25 seconds. It does shred armor, but it's very close range. Most people in higher elos just won't let you get that close, but he's fun. He could be good in some situations. He does have very good roaming. So I think he's one of the better of these kind of okay ones. He might deserve to be a little bit higher up. I'll put him higher up. I would probably play Rammus before I would play Taric. I don't know if I'd play him before I'd play Bard, but we'll put him up a little bit higher. Lux, I have people ask me about her. She has very low CC. Like, she can hit her stun. She's kind of like Morgana, but doesn't have the utility of the shield. So if you want to play Lux, I would just say play Morgana. Morgana at least has a black shield that can prevent a lot of CC, and Morgana can do a lot of burst damage also. And her Q actually lasts for 3 seconds, which is obscene if you land it, versus Lux's Q lasts for a little bit. So Lux can do a lot of damage if it's if you get a lot of AP, but I was saying it's going to be problematic. Veigar, you can charge your Q, get some free AP. The cage is nice, but a lot of people will get out of it. I don't know. You can get blown up and bullied very early on as Veigar. He doesn't have any escapes other than his little box that he throws up. So he's okay. But I feel like if you want an AP support, just do Zyra or Malzahar. Those are the two best ones. Vel'Koz, same deal. If you land every single one of your stuns, you know, then maybe he's worth it. He can get bullied out a lot early on, though. Teemo, I haven't tried him as support in a long time. The blind seems like it's good. His problem is I think he only has 500 range on his auto attacks. If he had a normal 550, he might be a lot better, but he doesn't quite bring enough to the table. I mean, maybe if you really need zone control around Baron, I could put Heimerdinger in here too. I forgot about Heimer. If you need control around Baron, maybe that's good if you get really far ahead and get like a Leandri's Rylai's, but I just feel like the vast majority of the time it's not going to be that good. Talia, I haven't tried it. Really long cooldowns, very situational. She does some okay AP damage. Just do Zyra or Malzahar, trust me. Sejuani has a nice AoE ultimate, has virtually no harass in lane. I've tried her before. It just feels extremely lackluster. Her mana costs are really high. Just, if you want the AoE tank, just do Malzahar, or just do Nautilus. Rumble, He's fun. I've tried him. He has a lot of damage. He has no resources. Malzahar, though, just play Malzahar. He does a lot of damage also, and his mana cost are basically non-existent as well, and he scales much better later in the game. Rumble's okay, but he falls off a lot. Heimerdinger, if you can land those grenades and get a 1.5 seconds on your little plasma grenades, he can be good. I mean, he's good at controlling lanes. He takes CS away from your AD carry, which is bad, but he's really good at pushing. So, you know, he's great at sieging. He's great at taking Baron. He's great at taking Dragon. If you can land his stun, it's a good stun. It's just really hard to land correctly. So he's just very, very risky and situational. So I wouldn't recommend it, but he might be sort of okay in some situations if you really need a hard push comp. Finally, and this will end the video, our little 2-hour video here. Finally, I think that other potentially viable supports that I haven't tried a lot that could be good, Jarvan. He does have Armor Shred. He does have Attack Speed Steroid with his pole, and he has a unique ultimate that can trap people in it. So this could be good against things like Olaf or Hecarim that just want to run around and annoy people and do a lot of damage. You could trap him in there. I think he could be good. I just haven't tried him out yet. He does have okay poke in lane with his little Q. So I don't know. He might be better than I think he is. So we'll have to see. If you get that knock-up, he does kind of have a stun. So maybe if they're going to build a lot of tanks and you just need to contain those tanks and do a lot of armor shredding, he could be good. Malachi, I haven't tried him. He could be good. I think he costs too much mana. I would probably just rather play Nautilus if they had Malachi. Zac has good engage, but it's hard to hit his E if someone sees you, so you have to constantly control your own bush and be able to hit them out of the dark. Could be okay. Vi does have the engage ult and the armor shred, so it's possible she's a good support. She's going to get bullied out early, but if you're against something like a Janna maybe, and you can roam later and get some kills middle with Vi, she could be good. Once again, I'd probably rather play Malzahar, but Vi could be a thing. Wukong could be very good. He does same deal, armor shred, AoE ultimate, but he can't do a lot before level 6, so if you're against a pushover lane like Janna, maybe you could try it out. Twisted Fate, I've heard people talk about Twisted Fate. I mean, he does have a 2-second stun on his gold card. He does have some poke. He can take towers pretty well. He does have an ultimate that can roam, but it's on a 3-minute cooldown. I just feel like there's probably better options, but I haven't tried it. Shen, if you hit the taunt, maybe. He's very close range with his Q. I don't know. I haven't tried Shen. Shen could be okay. Gragas could be okay. I just suspect there's a lot of problems with him in terms of the reliability of hitting his ultimate. He needs a little bit more gold to scale well. He's okay. Hecarim could be fun. Can't do a lot early on, but you know, you do have really powerful roams. You have a powerful ultimate, so maybe Hecarim could be okay. And Nar's another one. You know, if you can turn a big Gnar and like CC 4 people consistently into a wall, if you think they're going to be fighting in a jungle, maybe that's really good. You have nice harass early. You are tanky. You just don't have a lot of CC if you don't knock people into walls. So these are interesting. I just haven't tried them. They could be viable. These, once again, are okay sometimes, but I don't highly recommend them. These are a little bit better. I just think that they're viable, but I just think they're not as good as the A-class or the S-class champions. And these are the ones that I highly recommend. Once again, these are situational. These are very, very powerful in certain matchups. And these are powerful almost all the time. They have very few weaknesses. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I know the video is super long. I'm going to put timestamps in it to help you navigate it a little bit better. But overall, I hope this gives you some insight into the changes in 7.1 and what I think is currently powerful. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. And if you have any questions about supports I didn't mention, or you have more questions about things that I did mention, just leave a comment and I'm happy to answer them. So have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next time.